shared and becoming the new standard of how we do science and how we move things forward is not always an easy path. And that's really what we're here to help you with, to make that transition into a successful commercialization of your science. And we do that in 3 different ways. You may be familiar with our website, but we provide 3 different services. I'll be covering off the middle one today, technology evaluations, but we also help people in the earlier stages or in the pre-commercialization stages in consulting, as an example. So if you need a strategic plan, a marketing plan, a business plan, if you need to go out and do some market research and ask customers, you know, who is the right customers to target, what should I say in my messaging and my positioning, what's the right price point. So if you need to get feedback early on to see how you can tweak what you're doing and get it to be more relevant to the customer, we also take technologies and give like an overview of the technology and get people to change the way that the technology is being developed to make it more applicable to the needs of the industry. So that's all in the consulting and market research area of what we do. As I said, I'll be talking more about the technology evaluations, but the third thing that we do that we actually just launched a year ago because of the fabulous resources that we have here from our organization and our working with our partner, our sister organization, Cambridge Health Tech Institute, we now have a full-fledged marketing and communications offering that we have for every organization in life sciences and healthcare. So that would include things like press releases, websites, logos, social media, newsletters, webinars, education symposia, like little mini ones done for just you and your organization. So lots of things that we can help you with, and we'd love to talk to you about that as we move forward. But with no further ado, I'm going to turn it over to the technology evaluation discussion. So really what helps us do that is our being a sister company to Cambridge Health Tech Institute and having access to all the key trends in life sciences and all the speakers in life sciences and all the great things that are happening, plus having a database of over 900,000 decision makers in this area. In our database, we have everyone from academics to government, labs, biotech, pharma, CROs, hospitals, venture capitalists, et cetera, et cetera. So it really gives us an opportunity to have a very good pulse on what's happening out there and where things are moving and what the trends and what the issues are. So if we need to reach out and market to this group, or if we need to do a market research project, it's really very helpful. And the nice part is we actually have a fairly intimate relationship with so many of these people because they have been speakers, they are like you attending a webinar today, they attend our conferences. So over the last 20 years of CHI and the last 10 years of Cambridge Health Tech Associates, we've been able to develop these really strong relationships. And for us, where we focus those relationships is in the area of evaluating new technologies, working with both the pharmaceutical and biotech industry and the new services that are offered in order to accelerate their commercialization into the marketplace. So in thinking about the need for something like a consortium of technology evaluation, what are some of the key drivers that are bringing this need forward to all of us? Well, there's so many things happening out there. You have lots of science happening, amazing new technologies coming out there, but it's so much that it can be overwhelming sometimes. So I like to ask this question, and although I can't see you raise your hand and answer it, every month I'm doing multiple presentations like this in live events, and I ask my audience there, do you find that with all the science that's happening in healthcare today, are things getting easier for you? Or, so think about that for a second. Do you find that things are getting easier? Or do you find that things are getting harder? Well, people usually say either it's equal, or the majority of people say that things are getting harder and more complicated. And I think that that's really where we come in and can help you out tremendously in making sure that the science you have is positioned well for the end user, has been tried out by the end user, and then in the industry, what's so very important is that not just the end user knows about your technology, but that person's colleagues, that person's boss, and that person's direct reports all need to know how your technology can help them be successful before they'll bring it in. Because it is such a very important industry that we work in, it's really critical that any new technology that's brought in is validated and is considered in a wise, methodical way, because we're talking about creating new medications which can, have side effects, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a very great industry, but it has to be done in a very organized, efficient, optimal way. So what we have all experienced in the last while is what I call a tectonic shift in healthcare science and discovery. It's sort of like the earth was opened up, and for the first time ever, so many people in R&D were moved out of their R&D organizations. And there's lots of things causing that, things like the patent cliffs, but probably the biggest issue is that efficiencies have not yet been realized in how can we bring new technologies to the market. So I remember speaking to one head of R&D at a major pharmaceutical company, and he said to a group of us, actually, we thought we had the rule figured out. We would put 5 compounds into the end stages of clinical trials, et cetera, and we knew we would get 1 compound out. So we thought if we doubled that and put 10 compounds in, we'll get 2 compounds out. Well, that's not happening. Today we're still getting, although we're putting in 10, we're still getting 1 compound at the other end. So the industry is so much looking for new solutions, looking for new models that will allow them to be more flexible, and they're really, really pushing forward and looking at collaborative business models, because it's the only way that we're going to get the efficiencies that we need in this industry and be more successful. So this is an article that appeared in the Boston Globe about maybe over a year ago or so, but it really talked about the fact that drug firms are seeking new ways to do business, and that under mounting financial and regulatory pressure, they've stepped up experimenting with these new collaborative business models. So some of this we've seen before. So we've seen, people outsourcing operations, anything from research and drug testing to clinical trials and manufacturing, hoping that perhaps people can, perform such operations more cheaply and more efficiently. But in actual fact, in that article, one of the things that was very interesting that was mentioned is you have new groups, you might say, getting into this business of consortia and collaborations, et cetera, et cetera. So in that article, it talked about the fact that Massachusetts state officials were bringing together 7 drug companies into forming a novel neuroscience consortium. So again, states, cities, organizations are all getting involved in this, and if we can be efficient at it and make sure that we have things like the intellectual property issues resolved up front, then we can be successful. That's one of the things that's so fabulous about this consortium that was actually set up before I came here to Cambridge Health Tech Associates, is that we have all those contracts in place. So the members of our consortium have signed very extensive contracts to protect your intellectual property as a technology vendor, and it's a real opportunity to kickstart things and get them happening very quickly without having to go through that laborious process of signing all those contracts and getting them put in place. So there you go. I just preempted myself. The challenge really now is in putting those consortia together is making sure that those contracts are in place and that we're not fighting over intellectual property and other things like that. So enter now our Technology Evaluation Consortium. I've already mentioned that we've been doing it for nearly 10 years now. We've completed over 25 projects to date, and our goal is to put through the consortium members about 4 to 6 new technology evaluations per year. They would actually like us to bring even more, but that's our goal at this point in time, and this last year we actually achieved it, so we're very, very pleased with that. It's a really very terrific process in that it includes both interactive discussions over a couple of months with the members of the consortium at each pharmaceutical company. We bring them together, we have them talk and share ideas, we have them evaluate your technology, and we have them collect the data that's going to help validate what your science is all about and how it should be brought into the drug discovery and development process. And all of this is really important in order to accelerate that movement from science into commercialization. So let me just take a minute and tell you about a study we conducted not too long ago, in which we'll be issuing hopefully in the beginning of the new year. But what we did here was we talked to 96 people across the industry who are involved in evaluating new technologies in their companies. And one of the things we asked them in that study was, tell us a bit more about the last new technology that you adopted and you considered for adoption in your company. So actually, they didn't all adopt all of them, but what was the last new technology you considered to be adopted in your organization? So I'll tell you a little bit about the respondents. They were equally from small, medium, and large-sized companies as it relates to the size of the R&D budget. So it was a nice balance of people across the industry. And then we focused this first piece of research on people working in early drug discovery or preclinical phases of R&D. We hope to come back later and do a similar study in later phases of R&D, but in this report, almost 91% of people were in these early drug discovery or preclinical phases of R&D. So this will just give you an idea of sort of where their thinking is at and what were their key concerns. So in thinking about that last technology that they evaluated, we asked them this really important question. We asked them, what were your key concerns in adopting this technology for the first time for your organization? So we gave them a number of things to choose. So if you start at the bottom, the potential interruption or downtime, the learning curve, internal competency, service providers, cost, amount of time required to realize the benefit, and integration into existing systems. But the number one thing that they said was their key concern was whether or not there is validation of the technology. And that is typically looked at as, has someone tried out this technology? Do I have the data to validate this service or this offering so that I feel comfortable when talking to my colleagues, when talking to my boss, when talking to the people who report to me, so that we can all successfully bring this in and feel like we can really benefit from its implementation in the drug discovery and development process. So although we didn't tell them to answer this question, their number one answer, the only, almost 4.5 out of a 5-point scale rating, really validates the need for validation data for new technologies that want to move forward in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries. So one of the things that I think will be really interesting for a lot of people is, again, remember I said we asked them what was the last technology that you evaluated. So with an N of 1 across 96 people, we then cataloged their answers into various groups to kind of get an idea of the breadth of things that people are looking at. So the next 4 slides are our categorization of what people are looking at. Now, some of these technologies probably fit into multiple groups, but I just want to give you an overview of this snapshot in time earlier this year of what people have been evaluating. So they're looking at, the things in bold are the names that we've given to the categories. The things that are bulleted are exactly how the person wrote the item into the survey results. So people are looking at antibodies, biomarkers, different chemistry solutions. They're looking at cell system solutions, and they're looking at data collection and analysis solutions as well. As I said, I have 4 slides to show you, so I'll move on to the next one. They're also looking at drug delivery solutions, and they're looking at various equipment solutions and high content and high throughput technologies that they're evaluating. So these were all things that were under active evaluation within the 12 months prior to when people filled out this survey. The third slide covers things like imaging, omics, and various model studies. So again, there could be lots of things that people evaluated beyond the items on these lists, but these were the things that we had them think about and we had them talk about or answer in the survey that we did with them. And the fourth slide is preclinical safety, things that people were looking at, and sequencing, genomics, RNA, and DNA solutions. So as some of you who may know about our history, we actually started in the area of preclinical safety in regards to the Technology Evaluation Consortium, and we did that through our Drug Safety Executive Council. So you can see with this research that I've just shown you here, this has been a major impetus to us launching a major change for this program for 2013 and 2014 and beyond, in that we are now expanding our Technology Evaluation Consortium to cover all these categories and all these different areas of science that I've just mentioned, as well as go beyond that, which I'll share with you a little bit later. So it's been very exciting. As we also have reached out to technology vendors and to the pharma companies, we've asked them over and over again, for those of you who have been through this process, what were the reasons for you getting involved, and what are your key motivations? So the pharmaceutical industry, as I've already said, is increasingly relying on collaborations with their peers. We just have to figure out how to be more efficient. What this helps do is share knowledge, reduce costs and risks, and really speed the new drug delivery process and expand innovation. And really, the industry is looking for a better way to evaluate things and have more of a process, because it's, if you can imagine, you know, how many pharmaceutical and biotech companies exist today, in the hundreds. It's really difficult for them to evaluate all the new technology that's out there. So by us doing sort of almost a triaging and bringing them the new technologies for them to evaluate in a structured way, we do all the project management, we do all the organization, it really helps move things along much more quickly. And what are the benefits to the technology vendors? I think first and foremost, collecting that validation data. The other is you get such fabulous scientific feedback. You also see what many companies want rather than just what one company wants. So it allows you in your product development and your moving forward to see what are the core needs that you can address for the industry. You get fabulous counsel from the subject matter experts and your key target audience. They sit with you at the table, so to speak, as a partner, and they give you advice. You may not always like that advice, but you get the advice that you need to hear so that you know what it'll take for you to be successful in this environment. You're also building relationships with the key decision makers, and really it kind of then brings you sort of a multiplier effect for your development efforts. So many people have been quite pleased with the results. So our role in the whole process is we have a number of different roles. So our first role is one like today, where we're trying to identify novel technologies or technologies that have a new application or the technologies that need to be considered in the industry. We then propose the technology to our steering committee members for them to collectively evaluate it. And then we facilitate all the project management. We provide the infrastructure. We provide an independent analysis. We kind of play that honest broker role, sitting in the middle, making sure that your interests are recognized if you're a technology vendor, and making sure that your interests are recognized if you're a pharmaceutical company or a biotech company. So it's really our role to create the best scientific evaluation, and we don't sit on anyone's side in particular. We sit in the middle, making sure that everyone is very successful. Why is this so important? You may have heard of this book called Crossing the Chasm, and really what we're trying to do is help you get to a point, both as a pharmaceutical and biotech company and as a technology vendor, to see where the greatest application would be for this new scientific offering that we have in front of us and that we're considering. Again, we look out across the industry to try to reach out to people to see what should be brought forward. And then we also use our internal subject matter experts to pre-screen the technologies. Hopefully I'll get a chance later on in the presentation to show you the qualifications of Dr. Ernie Bush, who has actually headed up every single technology evaluation that we've done. And he is extremely well respected in the industry and actually worked at Roche for quite a number of years, so is well established and knows the inside track to how things are done in the pharmaceutical industry. As I mentioned before, we started in the area of drug safety at first. Over the last year, we've been reaching out to expand into new areas like next-generation sequencing and genomics and computational biology, and even some efficacy areas. For instance, one of the projects we have right now is around the efficacy of oncology medications. So we're really thrilled to be expanding that even further now, and I'll show you some of the categories later on in this presentation. So the third role that we play, as I've kind of hinted at pretty strongly, is neutrality. We are a trusted third party in addressing the common challenges of both the industry and the vendors, and we sort of, I guess you could say, feel your pain every day in saying we need to understand what's out there if you're from the industry, and the new scientific opportunities need to understand better where they fit. So it's really been quite an exciting adventure, because although we have this proven framework every project is different, and every project, offers a number of different opportunities. But I think what also makes us so successful is sort of what I mentioned before, is we have all the legal stuff organized up front: contracts, non-disclosure agreements, material transfer agreements, and we also do all the project management. So whether it's be organizing the team meetings, preparing the minutes, providing a portal of where you can look for the history on the project, holding the webinars. Dr. Bush actually analyzes the information from a third-party perspective as well. So in the end, because we're all so busy, we make sure that the project gets done, and we make sure that there's the optimal level of participation from across all members involved. So I kind of have hinted at this a bit, but there's our scientific director, Dr. Ernie Bush, who facilitates the project. There's a project manager who will do all the logistics of managing things both with the vendor and with the industry. There is the technology vendor who is the sponsor of the project. Usually it's just one vendor per project, but I'll give you an example in a case study where we've done it with multiple vendors. The steering committee, every year each steering committee member pays an annual fee to join the steering committee. And usually we have between 10 and 15 pharmaceutical biotech companies involved. However, we are also on a major campaign to add in more pharmaceutical companies. So if you're listening today and you're from a pharmaceutical or biotech company, we would love you to have us contact us to find out how you can join and be part of this great process as well. And then within each pharmaceutical company, we actually have 3 levels of people. We have the steering committee member. We have their bosses who authorize the annual payment and who know everything that's going on, and it can help navigate the project through the organization if need be. And then for your particular project, we have the relevant subject matter experts. So you have 3 levels, usually from an executive VP down to perhaps even as low as bench scientists or principal scientists, which are very senior people in the organization, but are specialized in the scientific evaluation of new technologies and new medications. So we have all the right people. And the nice part as well is it's the steering committee members' role to go out and get the right subject matter experts who need to be involved in the decision-making process around the technology that's under evaluation. So this is just an overview of the project milestones. I won't go through all the details here, but really there's a preparation phase where we get you ready. There's a kickoff phase where you're actually kicking off to the steering committee and then identifying the people that we would like to have as subject matter experts and finalizing the project. There's the core operation where we're actually doing the scientific decision-making. What is the scientific question we're considering? What do we need? Do we need compounds to be evaluated? Do we need something else to be looked at? There's the analysis phase, and then we have a final summit meeting. And at the final summit meeting, those are traditionally done face-to-face over about 2 days, usually one half day and then the next half day. But it's really a chance for you to intimately engage with your counterparts, whether you're engaging with the industry or you're engaging with the vendor, and really go through all the data in a very structured, diligent way and look at how the industry as a whole is going to look at moving forward with this technology and adopting it and putting it into the drug discovery and development process. The very last couple things we do is we actually write a report that's issued to all members, and we also hold a webinar, a private, exclusive, invitation-only webinar with all the pharmaceutical and biotech member companies where they could invite everyone from their whole company to listen to the technology presentation, because they've been a special part of it and they deserve to know about this information in a way where they can ask their questions and get the answers that they're looking for. So that's just a quick overview of the project milestones. So the onboarding of a new technology is you would complete a sponsor application. We would then float your sponsor application and your idea to the steering committee, but we would have worked with you to optimize your application. You would then sign an agreement with us, and you are basically considered a sponsor, so you're sponsoring this project, and so therefore you would pay for this opportunity to be part of the Technology Evaluation Consortium. What we have done, though, is because it's a shared payment model, the pharmaceutical company is paying for some of the infrastructure and the vendor is also paying for some of the infrastructure. We're able to make it you know, a shared model where everyone kind of has a lower cost than they might have had to do this otherwise. Some people say to us, well, you know, if I had to do this on my own, I'd have to go hire a business development person, and they'd have to go make all these contacts. They'd have to develop the contracts individually with each company. They'd have to, you know, get appointments, et cetera, et cetera. So we get you there quicker, and we get the project done more quickly as well, too. So after all those steps are completed, then we start the project, and we go into that next phase of actually evaluating it and getting to the end results that we're all looking for. So here's a list of partial technology, or partial list of technology providers that we've worked with in the past, and we're proud to say that this number is growing more and more every year. So let me give you two quick case studies so you can think about how it might apply in either your pharmaceutical company, biotech company, or yourself as a technology provider. And what I would ask, too, is that if you are from a pharmaceutical or biotech company and you are being presented with some new technologies to consider, we would love to hear about those new technologies so we could see if we could get those companies to join. In fact, I just got an email this morning, because it would have been nighttime in Germany, but I got an email from one of our consortium members. Oh, actually, I don't think it was Germany, but it was somewhere in Europe, where one of our consortium members said, hey, I just was talking to this technology company, and they would love to be a part of the consortium. Can you connect up with them and tell them more about it? So with no further ado, let me give you an example of the two case studies. So this one was with a small technology company that developed an in vitro safety screen that claimed to be able to predict whether a drug candidate would induce suicidal ideation as an adverse side effect. So the thing that I find so phenomenal about this example is, again, it's in vitro, so it's way before you get into animals and humans, a technology that was going to be able to predict suicidal ideation. Well, it was embraced very well by our project team at the time. So 8 pharmaceutical companies decided to join this project, and they came up with the technology supplier with a test hypothesis and a test protocol. And in this case, it was fundamentally, let's look at some compounds that cause suicidal ideation, and let's look at some compounds that do not cause suicidal ideation. So what we did is we supervised and worked with the technology provider to look at that library of test compounds and to look at validating the tool. And what we typically do is we go through a training set where the compounds are unblinded, and then we go through an evaluation set where the compounds are blinded. So after that phase, what we do is we distribute the results to everyone. So the results are distributed to Ernie Bush and as well as to the pharmaceutical company members. And of course, the vendor has the results already. But then we unblind the compound IDs in this case, and then the group assesses how well the technology performed at predicting the known adverse effects of the test panel. And the opportunity here is that the pharmaceutical companies can do their own evaluation. As well, they've often submitted not publicly available compounds. So that also makes it very interesting because maybe they've done some extra work on them and they have some extra information that they share with the team. So in this case, we held a face-to-face summit to review the results, and we held some really great discussions about the technology. The reason why, though, I share this example is it was one of the rare cases where the first round of the technology evaluation actually didn't go all that well. But what happened was, as the pharmaceutical industry sat around with this technology provider, they said, you know, we should be seeing better results than what you've presented here. And so as the industry probed further and further, they realized that the company had used an internal person to do the statistics or to do the statistical analysis around the data results. And so that's why the data probably wasn't looking as good as it could. So the industry turned to the organization and said, well, why don't you investigate these 3 statistical analysis companies who specialize in this area and who could give you a better analytical package. So the company did that. They went away and they interviewed all 3 companies. They chose one of them, and they had the data reanalyzed. And so for for the first time ever, we actually held a second summit where the new data was presented, and this time it was an absolutely slam dunk. It was definitely proven that their in vitro screen could predict suicidal ideation. So a really fabulous opportunity where if they had gone to market with the first set of data, they would have not been successful whatsoever, but now they had much, much more stronger data that people could be looking at. So let me just share with you a second case study, which is totally different than the first one, because the first one required compounds, and not every new service or new technology actually requires compounds. So we all know that pharmaceutical companies have years of drug development data that they really can't leverage. And why? Because of things like different databases, different mergers and acquisitions that have gone on, et cetera, et cetera. Well, out there in the marketplace, when we did this project, there are many, many vendors producing software solutions, but none of them really had a solution that was deemed to be sufficient. And for every company, every pharmaceutical or biotech company, to do the due diligence on each vendor would be time-consuming and expensive, but what the industry already knew was that there was not one perfect vendor. So they knew they were going to have to choose a vendor and kind of invest money into them in order to get them up to the level of what they were looking for. And that would be risky, because what if that vendor then went out of business, et cetera, et cetera. So the industry actually approached us and said, could you organize 5 of us, in this case, to look at this question? So what happened was we guided consensus on a list of user requirements, so what was the common set of requirements across all 5 companies. Then we sourced nearly 50 potential vendor partners. We drafted an RFP for 12 finalists, and we had 5 vendors actually present to the consortium. So you might be saying, well, if I was one of the 5, that's great, but if I was one of the 45, that's not so great. Well, you still could see, as one of the 45, what the industry's requirements were, because if you were looking at the RFP, it would be quite clear what the industry was looking for. So again, a chance to change your business model or adopt your software to better meet the industry's needs. So that sort of transparency is really, really helpful for lots of people. So what happened in the end here is that the process instilled enough confidence for 2 of the industry companies to move forward with one vendor, and then 3 of the other companies chose an alternative vendor. So really a great partnership on both sides for the technology software companies as well as for the pharmaceutical and biotech companies. So a nice example there, quite different than the first one. So what are some of the reasons people get involved in a consortium like this? It helps reduce redundant activities, lower the cost of the project. The third bullet here is probably the most important, the synergies and the conversations that go on between the industry about this particular technology, but happen in front of and with, sitting at the table, that technology supplier or vendor or scientist, is just phenomenal. The industry appreciates it so much, and everyone gets to learn things that they would have never have learned otherwise. So it's just really extremely, extremely helpful. I mentioned before the concept of crossing the chasm, and really how if you're stuck in this area of maybe a few organizations have tried you out, or if you're new to the marketplace, this methodology really helps execute things in a much more expeditious manner and really accelerates the adoption of useful tools into the industry. So this is, I think, why a lot of people like this concept on both sides. As I said before, we have all the infrastructure, all the contracts in place to make it easier on both sides. And if need be, we have a library of test compounds, up to 300 compounds. And as I've kind of already mentioned along the way, significant experience in organizing and facilitating these collaborations in life sciences. So one last thing before I open it up to questions is we have just recently announced a brand new program which works in conjunction with the Technology Evaluation Consortium, and this is called our Signature Award. So in what we found from the industry, and I think it says it on my next slide, so I'll just go there, is that the industry has said to us, you know what, there's so many new technologies out there, but we just don't have the time to review them all, and we would like to find a way that we could more effectively and more efficiently and in a more educated way understand the new technologies that are out there and understand the changes that are happening and be able to consider what we should be bringing into our organizations. So this program was really, again, driven by the industry's need to see more technologies on a regular basis. And so let me, without any further ado, tell you more about it. So what it is we're calling it the Signature Award. And what happens is that you will be evaluated after submitting an application. You'll be evaluated by the actual people in the industry and their subject matter experts that relate to your area of interest. And they will then rank you on a scale of different criteria. And in the end, you'll get a rating in one of these 4 designated areas. So you will either be considered a blockbuster technology, an upstart technology, a novel, or an innovative technology in the industry. So it's a real fabulous way for you to get feedback directly from them and for them to also understand what you're all about and to go through that process of actually thinking about you and thinking about where you fit into the industry. So as I said, all technology providers will fill out an application. You will have an opportunity to do a webinar to the industry with the current Technology Evaluation Consortium members and the relevant subject matter experts from their companies. The criteria on which they'll rate you are 2 dimensions. One is market readiness, and the other is the value to the marketplace, meaning the value to the drug discovery and development process. Uniquely, whereas the Technology Evaluation Consortium has typically been done just with companies who are in the commercial phase, this Signature Award is available both to commercial technology providers as well as to academics, because we really would like to get this moving forward and get it moving faster and get your science adopted. So this is what you'll get, is you'll get a ribbon based upon which category you are rated as, and you can use this ribbon on all of your marketing materials, all your promotion materials, your website, et cetera, et cetera. So as I said, there's a webinar evaluation. So if you're a commercial vendor, it will be a 30-minute presentation that you'll do via webinar to the industry. They will rate you, but the thing that's really unique for the commercial organizations is you will have a chance to win a free, full-blown Technology Evaluation Consortium project. So if we have a minimum of 4 companies submitting in any particular category, we will choose one winner to win a free Technology Evaluation Consortium. For the academic organizations, so for both of these there's a fee, which I'll tell you in a second, but for the academic evaluations it'll be a 15-minute presentation and again a rating by the industry. So again, putting yourself right in front of those people who will make a decision about how your technology could be incorporated in their drug discovery and development process. So there are the costs. For the commercial companies, it's $7,500, and for the academic organizations or scientists, it's $2,500. We've spoken to a number of universities and their technology transfer offices, and because typically right now a university spends money helping a scientist get a patent, but then I've heard about lots of struggles from both the technology transfer office and from the scientist of how do I take the next step forward? How do I get in front of the industry? How do I know if my technology has the potential of doing anything beyond me getting a patent? So we really worked hard with the industry to find a way that they could evaluate lots of these technologies so that we can move that forward at a much faster pace and help technology transfer offices or commercialization offices at universities get that feedback and understand where they should invest more of their organization's resources to move that science forward. The same thing we've actually heard as feedback from a number of venture capitalists who have said, wow, this would be a really great way for me to know which technologies I should put my money in, because it's not just you at Cambridge Health Tech Associates saying whether you say the technology is any good. It's a chance for the actual users, the end users, to tell us whether or not this technology has you know, hope for the future and where it fits and how we should move it forward. So it's really, we find the feedback we're getting so far is that people are saying that this is such a terrific opportunity because of, as I said, you get direct subject matter expert feedback. It could be early or mid-stage evaluation of your technology. You could do it this year. You could come back again after you make changes and do it again next year. You could do it once. You could do it in multiple categories if you have multiple categories that you fit into. And as I said, you get this industry-derived designation in one of the 4 different areas to help set you apart from the rest of the organizations. So what else do you get? You get a report, which will outline your scores in this evaluation, and then you get all qualitative feedback, so kind of like a mini market research report. And they will rate you both on your application and the webinar presentation. You can put whatever you want in the application, pretty much, and your webinar, I already told you how long you have to talk and present. And again, most importantly, for those who are commercial technology providers, you have a chance to win a free Technology Evaluation Consortium to be done with the actual members of the consortium and their subject matter experts. So I think I've said this many ways over and over again, but this is just a summary of everything that a commercial vendor would get. The only difference for an academic scientist or academic organization is the price and their no technology evaluation opportunity, because we're rating you usually earlier along, and the webinar is only 15 minutes. So if you would like to apply, we are accepting applications now. Since we just launched this in the middle of October, we were kind of hoping to get everybody's applications in before the holidays. So we would like to have everybody's application in at the very latest by December 15th, because then we will take the next couple of months to do those presentations so that we can award the designations and award the free Technology Evaluation Consortium project by the end of March 2014. Of course, if you want to bypass the process entirely, you can actually just apply to be part of a full-blown Technology Evaluation Consortium project, but this is a new way to get more technologies to be evaluated, to get feedback to more organizations, and most importantly, to address the industry's need to see technologies on a consistent, regular basis, and to better understand how they can fit into the drug discovery and development process. So here's just a quick look at the categories. You can go to our website and download this, or in the email that you received inviting you to this webinar at the very, very bottom, you can download 2 documents. You can download this one here, or you can download a PDF which summarizes everything that I've said about the Signature Award and what we've launched. So you could look along here and say, oh, I want to submit now into 1 category, or I want to submit now into 2 categories, or I want to submit now and submit later. So it's very flexible, and you get to decide how you would like to be profiled with the industry, and therefore you get to decide which type of subject matter experts will show up at your evaluation. So there's a summary of the Technology Evaluation Consortium and the Signature Award. And I'm going to go to the chat box and start to answer questions, so I would encourage you to send in more. We will also put up this survey into the chat box, and I would love to have people answer the survey, give us feedback, give us your ideas and suggestions, and tell us what you'd like to hear about in the future. So here's a question. In these collaboration relationships, does the technology vendor retain all IP rights over their technology, even if the technology is advanced during the validation by the partner? Yes, absolutely. You retain all your intellectual property rights, and that is covered off both in the contract that we write with you and in the contract that we have in place with all the pharmaceutical and biotech companies. If you think about it, most pharmaceutical companies are not in the business of doing what you're probably doing, so They do not oftentimes even want to even think about the idea of bringing, copying what you're doing. But if you have any concerns or questions about your particular technology and whether you think there's any sensitivities around that, we will discuss that with you extensively up front and make sure that you feel very comfortable about that, but it is all covered. And all the industry members know that, and they're very, very sensitive to that point. And most everyone who's been involved so far has been with us for many, many years, and we've addressed that over and over again. Another question is, does the technology vendor have the rights to use the data that's generated during the validation for patent applications and marketing materials? That's kind of two questions. So yes, after the project's finished, you are welcome to use the information in your marketing materials. The question around patent applications is mostly yes as well, but let's say, for instance, you, for some reason, had in the validation process access to a pharmaceutical company's patented drug formula, and that was something that was utilized by you in this process. So you can't go so far as to take their drug patent and use it as part of your patent, so to speak. So it's a fine line, but it's probably one that, as we would get into a conversation with you, it would make a lot of sense. And it just recognizes that each side has their own intellectual property, and on the pharmaceutical and biotech side, it's their compounds that are the intellectual property. On your side, it's your technology that is your intellectual property. So hopefully I answered that one. I believe I also answered this one: who pays for the cost of the validation experiments? The technology provider pays a fee for the project, and then usually the experiments are also funded by the technology provider, unless they're very, very expensive and we want to do a little bit of a different type of project where we get co-investment. That has not happened too much. Usually we just change the size of the project so that it's reasonable and affordable by everyone. But this is, again, something we can discuss in detail, and we can try to negotiate and figure out how to make it work for all sides. We often have the pharmaceutical industry giving things to the project. So if you needed more compounds, or if you needed other things, we'll often have them donating, you might say, or contributing to the project in that way to make it more cost effective from everyone. Let's see what else. So in my experience as a software vendor, there are significant barriers to technology adoption even after an evaluation concluded successfully. Farmers are very slow to make a purchase. Does your process lower those barriers? I would say, from all the projects I've been through, I think it absolutely does lower those barriers, because if you think about what I mentioned before, that we actually have 3 levels of people from every pharmaceutical and biotech company. We have the steering committee member, who is usually somewhere between a vice president and a director. We have their bosses, who are usually between a vice president and an executive vice president. And then we have the subject matter experts, who could range anywhere from a director on downwards. So we have so many people involved in the project, and you have so many touch points with them along the way, and ability to understand some of those additional barriers that I showed in that market research survey. And they really want to help you figure out to succeed. They don't want to be thinking that they're being salespeople for you, because that's not their role, but they want to help you understand what it's going to take to succeed in their environment. So everyone comes to the party with their best scientific hats on, and really contributes in a fabulous way, both from a scientific and a business perspective. Okay, so we have a question about the Signature Award. What do the Signature Award categories really mean? What is the difference between upstart, novel, and innovator? So I'll just maybe go back for a second, if I can get there quickly. So if we, I can get to the grid. But if you look at the grid is built on 2 criteria. One criteria is market readiness, and the other criteria is value to the marketplace. So market readiness is along the bottom of the grid, and value to the marketplace is along the left-hand side. So we are actually writing definitions now for what those 4 areas entail, but we will give you your numerical score as well as give you your qualitative feedback from the industry as to how they see you fitting into this as we go forward. And what it means to your current customers and prospective customers is probably how you explain to them the process and what you learned from it. Okay, so another question here. For the academic review, can we get copies of the CDA and MTA, the Material Transfer Agreement, for general counsel review? Absolutely, we can do that with you individually, so just engage with us in a conversation and we'll move that forward. Is this shared information considered as non-confidential, or should we sign a CDA with you? So we always sign a confidentiality agreement with everyone. We will make it very clear when are we moving from non-confidential information to confidential information, but we on our side as Cambridge Health Tech Associates have no reason in the world to share your confidential information with anyone. That would not be good for any of us. So we maintain confidentiality about everything regardless of whether we've passed the phase from non-confidential to confidential. So hopefully I answered that question. So do you address the white elephant of validation of the technologies with the purpose of being added to the drug applications evaluation by regulatory authorities? Many of these technologies are used by pharma in early lead optimization, but smaller organizations do not use these technologies, thus potentially advancing molecules that are not sufficiently de-risked into human subjects. The reason they will not use the new technologies is because they are not required as part of IND enabling studies package. Does anyone at CHA think about this? Yes, we definitely think about this, and we can talk about it as it relates to your particular project, or talk about what we could do to help you move along that path. I would say a number of the technologies that we've evaluated over the past have either before, during, or after being part of this project developed really strong relationships with the regulatory agencies, either through working with us or through working with the pharmaceutical companies. So yes, we all recognize that that's a key hurdle to success as we go forward. Let's see. I think I've answered almost everybody's question. I know a couple people have asked about the cost. The cost is, we talked to you about it individually. Let's put it this way, it's way less than hiring a business development person, but it isn't something that everyone can afford, because if you look at what we do in the program, it is quite intensive. It includes both preparing you for presentation to the industry. It includes a whole series of webinars where we go through the scientific evaluation and validation, and it includes a 2-day summit meeting. It includes a report at the end, and it includes a webinar to every consortium member. So just as a comparison, you know, if you were to price out any one of those things individually, all together you'd be paying less than pricing those out individually, but it's a lot more than the $7,500 for the Signature Award. So I would welcome you to send me an email or give me a call and we can talk about that further, but that would just give you a little bit of perspective. I see one other question has just come in. Do you work with companies that are specifically in the animal health companion animal arena? So as we're expanding into other areas, if you look at the list of areas that we're considering, we've had a number of companies, so for instance diagnostic companies, CROs, animal health companies ask us to take this Technology Evaluation Consortium into other areas. So we would love to consider bringing it into other areas, and oftentimes the animal health component is just another piece of the pharmaceutical company. So it would be, you know, make a lot of sense to move into that arena. So we're willing and able to kick it off in other areas, but our history has been in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry, but we would need an initiating project to move it into other areas, which we would love to do, of course. Let me just see. Another question here is, can you provide references, testimonials from technology vendors who have gone through the program? Yes, I would, if you, again, send me an email. We have a number of case studies. We have some video testimonials. And then beyond that, of course, we would love to introduce you to any people who have been through the process and allow you to talk to them directly. So I'm just 2 minutes before the hour, and hopefully I've answered everyone's question. We did record this whole event, so if you want to listen to it afterwards or share it with others in your organization, just to remind everybody, there is a survey up in the chat box, and we would love you to fill that out. Let us know if we should be calling you and following up with a potential opportunity either in the Signature Awards, which are due at the middle of December, or with a Technology Evaluation Consortium. We are trying to fill up our schedule for 2014 and make sure that all the Technology Evaluation Consortium projects are in place. So even if you're just thinking about it or if you're interested, again, I encourage you to give us a shout and see if it makes sense in your plans for 2014. I'll just see if there's any more questions before I sign off. Nope, no more questions. So again, I thank you for your attendance today, your participation, your questions, and for my dry throat now at the end of it. But I love talking about this. I did not create this. I am the proud recipient of having it be here when I arrived, and I have to give Dr. Ernie Bush amazing credit for making this the fabulous thing it is and for having developed such respect and rapport in the industry that we're able to take it to a new level at this point in time. So again, thank you for your attendance, and I look forward to hearing from lots of you. Take care and have a great